What if I told you that every struggle in your life, every sleepless night spent worrying, every moment you've spent trying to figure out how, what if all of that was completely unnecessary? My friends, I want you to imagine for a moment that you've been carrying a heavy suitcase up a mountain, only to discover that there was an elevator all along. That suitcase is your overthinking mind. And the elevator? That's what I'm about to share with you today. You see, from the moment you could speak, you were taught that thinking harder would solve your problems. Your parents said, think before you act. Your teachers demanded, think critically. Society programmed you to believe that the mind is your greatest asset. But here's what they never told you. Your mind was never meant to be the architect of your reality. It was meant to be the carpenter. Right now, as you listen to these words, your mind is probably racing. It's asking, but how can I stop thinking? How will I solve my problems? What about my responsibilities? You see, even now, it's trying to maintain control. I spent years watching people exhaust themselves with mental gymnastics. They analyze every decision to death. They worry about futures that may never come. They replay past mistakes like broken records. And what do they have to show for it? More confusion, more anxiety, more of the same results they're trying to escape. The truth is this: your conscious mind is like a flashlight in a dark room. It can only illuminate what it's pointed at, but it cannot see the whole room at once. There is a greater intelligence, a cosmic mind, if you will, that sees everything simultaneously. And here's the remarkable part: you have access to it the moment you stop interfering. But before I tell you how to access this cosmic intelligence, let me ask you something that might disturb you. What if the very thing you think is helping you is actually the biggest obstacle to everything you want? I want you to consider something profound. Every time you've had a breakthrough in your life, every moment of sudden clarity, every aha moment, every time the perfect solution appeared out of nowhere, where did that come from? Was it from hours of thinking, or did it arrive in a moment of stillness, when your mind finally became quiet? Think about it. The greatest inventions, the most beautiful art, the most profound discoveries, they didn't come from forcing the mind to work harder. They came from what we call inspiration, literally meaning in spirit. They came when the individual became a clear channel for something greater than their personal thinking. But here's where most people get it wrong. They experience these moments of divine guidance, and then immediately try to figure out how to make it happen again. They turn inspiration into a mental exercise, and in doing so, they close the very channel through which it came. The universe doesn't need your help in figuring out the how. It only needs your permission to work through you. I remember a student who came to me, desperate to save his failing business. He had spreadsheets, business plans, marketing strategies. His office looked like a war room. "Neville," he said, "I've thought of everything, but nothing works." I told him something that shocked him. Stop thinking about your business for 1 week. Instead, spend that time imagining how it feels to be successful. See yourself shaking hands with satisfied customers. Feel the weight of prosperity. Hear people praising your success. But don't think about how to make it happen. He thought I was crazy, but he was desperate enough to try. 3 days into this practice, he received an unexpected phone call that led to the largest contract of his career. The solution came not from his thinking, but from his being. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and this might completely change how you see yourself. You are not who you think you are. The person you believe yourself to be is just a collection of past thoughts and experiences. But your true self, that's something entirely different. Your assumptions shape everything. Every experience in your life, every relationship, every opportunity, every setback is a direct reflection of what you assume to be true about yourself and your world. Not what you hope to be true, not what you think should be true, but what you actually assume in the depths of your being. Most people live unconsciously, allowing their assumptions to be shaped by external circumstances. They see struggle, so they assume life is hard. They experience rejection, so they assume they're not worthy of love. They face financial challenges, so they assume money is scarce. But here's the secret that changes everything. You can choose your assumptions. Let me share something that might sound impossible. Reality is not fixed. What you call the real world is simply a collection of solidified assumptions. When enough people assume something is true, it appears to be an unchangeable fact. But for the individual who dares to assume differently, reality becomes fluid. I once knew a woman who was told by doctors that she would never walk again. The medical evidence was clear. The experts were unanimous. But in her mind, she began to assume something different. Every night she would imagine herself dancing at her daughter's wedding. She didn't hope to walk. She assumed she already could. She felt the music, felt her feet moving, felt the joy of that moment as if it were happening now. The doctors called it a miracle when she walked out of that hospital 6 months later. But it wasn't a miracle. It was the natural result of a changed assumption manifesting in physical form. Your outer world has no choice but to conform to your inner convictions. This is not philosophy. This is law. And here's what trips people up. They try to change their assumptions while still reacting to their current circumstances. They say, I assume I'm wealthy, while feeling anxious about their bills. They declare, I assume I'm loved, while feeling lonely and rejected. True assumption is not an intellectual exercise. It's a state of being. When you truly assume something, you don't need to convince yourself it's true. You simply know it is. But let me warn you about something that keeps 99% of people trapped in mediocrity. They actually believe struggle makes them more deserving. They think suffering equals worthiness. And this belief is destroying their dreams faster than they can create them. Society has sold you one of the greatest lies ever told, that you must struggle to succeed, that you must earn your good through hardship, that no pain, no gain is a universal truth. But this belief system is keeping you from the very things you desire most. Think about it. When you struggle for something, what are you really saying? You're saying that it's not naturally yours, that you're not worthy of it in your current state, that you must somehow prove yourself deserving. But the universe doesn't operate on a merit system. It operates on assumption and feeling. I've watched people work themselves to exhaustion chasing success, only to watch it slip through their fingers. I've seen others who barely lifted a finger receive abundance beyond measure. The difference wasn't in their effort. It was in their state of being. The person who struggles believes they are separate from what they desire. The person who receives knows they are one with it. When you release the need to struggle, something magical happens. You stop pushing against life and start flowing with it. You stop trying to force outcomes and start allowing them to unfold. You discover that the universe is not your adversary, it's your collaborator. But letting go of struggle requires tremendous faith. It means releasing control over the how and trusting that there's an intelligence far greater than your personal will, orchestrating everything perfectly. I remember teaching this principle to a man who had been unemployed for 2 years. He had sent out hundreds of resumes, attended countless interviews, networked until he was exhausted. Nothing worked. When I suggested he stop trying so hard and instead embody the feeling of already being employed, he almost laughed at me. Neville, he said, I can't just sit around doing nothing. I'm not asking you to do nothing, I replied. I'm asking you to stop doing the wrong thing. Instead of chasing jobs from a state of desperation, assume you already have the perfect position. Feel grateful for work you love. Imagine colleagues who respect you. Experience the satisfaction of meaningful contribution. Within 2 weeks, a former colleague called him out of the blue with an opportunity that exceeded everything he had been chasing. The job found him the moment he stopped desperately seeking it. Now, here's something that will probably shock you. The greatest power available to you is not in what you do, but in what you don't do. There's a force more powerful than all your efforts combined, and it can only be accessed in complete stillness. In our noisy, chaotic world, stillness has become a lost art. But within that stillness lies the greatest treasure, direct communion with the creative power of the universe itself. Most people are afraid of silence because in silence, they're forced to confront their own minds. They discover how chaotic their thoughts really are, how much fear and doubt they carry, how little control they actually have. So they fill every moment with noise, activity, distraction, anything to avoid the discomfort of facing themselves. But what they don't realize is that this avoidance is keeping them from their greatest power. In stillness, you stop being a reactor and become a creator. When your mind becomes quiet, something extraordinary happens. The same intelligence that orchestrates the movement of planets, that coordinates the migration of birds, that heals your body without your conscious involvement. That intelligence becomes available to guide your life. But you cannot access this guidance while your mind is churning with worry, plans, and analysis. Divine wisdom speaks in whispers, not shouts. It comes as gentle nudges, sudden knowings, moments of clarity that arise from nowhere. I've experienced this countless times, faced with what seemed like impossible situations. I've learned to go into the silence, not to think my way out of the problem, but to surrender it completely. And in that surrender, solutions appear that my thinking mind could never have conceived. The modern world teaches you that stillness is laziness, that if you're not constantly doing something, you're wasting time. But this is backward thinking. The most powerful action you can take is often no action at all. It's aligning yourself with the flow of life rather than fighting against it. True stillness is not the absence of activity. It's the presence of awareness. When you cultivate this inner stillness, your outer actions become incredibly effective. You stop wasting energy on unnecessary struggles. You begin to move with precision, guided by an intelligence that sees the whole picture while you can only see fragments. But here's something that might break your understanding of reality itself. Time, as you experience it, is an illusion. And once you understand this illusion, you can collapse years of waiting into moments of manifestation. The greatest secret I can share with you is this. Everything you desire already exists. Not in some distant future, not as a possibility, it exists now, in this moment, in what we call the eternal present. Your mistake is thinking that you must wait for conditions to change before you can experience what you want. You believe that first you must work hard, then save money, then you can be wealthy. First you must meet the right person, then build a relationship, then you can experience love. First you must achieve success, then you can feel confident. But creation doesn't work that way. Creation works from the end, not toward it. Imagine that everything you desire has already happened. You already have the wealth, the love, the success, the health, whatever it is you seek. How would you feel right now? How would you walk? How would you speak? What thoughts would occupy your mind? The secret is to live from that end state now, before you see any evidence of it in your external world. This is not make-believe or positive thinking. This is understanding how reality actually operates. Your external world is always catching up to your internal world. When you persist in the feeling of already having what you desire, the physical world has no choice but to conform to that inner reality. But most people do the opposite. They look at their current circumstances and let those circumstances dictate how they feel. They see lack, so they feel poor. They experience loneliness, so they feel unloved. They observe their current limitations, so they feel powerless. This is living from the beginning instead of the end, and it keeps you trapped in cycles of more of the same. I taught this principle to a young woman who desperately wanted to be a successful artist. She had talent, but no connections, no money for art supplies, no gallery representation. By all external measures, she was as far from success as one could be. "Neville," she said, "how can I feel successful when I'm living in a tiny apartment, working at a coffee shop, and my art supplies are borrowed?" Because I told her, your current circumstances are the result of your past assumptions. If you want different circumstances, you must assume a different state now. Close your eyes. Imagine you're already a celebrated artist. You're standing in a beautiful gallery, surrounded by people admiring your work. Feel the satisfaction, the recognition, the fulfillment. Make it so real that for those moments, it's actually happening. She practiced this daily, living in the end of her wish fulfilled. Within 6 months, a series of seemingly miraculous events led to her first gallery showing. Within a year, she was supporting herself through her art. the external world caught up to her internal assumption. Now here's something that will either liberate you or terrify you. There's a law operating in your life right now that's more reliable than gravity, more consistent than the sunrise, and more powerful than any force you can imagine. And whether you know it or not, you're using it every single moment. This law is always working. The law I speak of is this: you become what you assume yourself to be. This law is impersonal, impartial, and absolutely reliable. It doesn't care whether your assumptions are positive or negative, whether they serve you or limit you. It simply brings into manifestation whatever you persistently assume to be true. Right now, as you listen to these words, this law is working. Every thought you think, every belief you hold, every assumption you make is being impressed upon the creative power of the universe. And that power is shaping your tomorrow based on what you assume today. Most people are unconscious of this process. They think their thoughts don't matter, that their beliefs are private, that their assumptions have no real power. But nothing could be further from the truth. Your inner world is constantly broadcasting, and the outer world is constantly responding. If you assume life is hard, you will encounter difficulty at every turn. If you assume people cannot be trusted, you will be surrounded by betrayal. If you assume money is scarce, you will always struggle financially. But if you assume life flows with ease, that people are fundamentally good, that abundance is your natural state, then this too will be your experience. The law doesn't discriminate. It gives you exactly what you assume to be true. This means you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the creator of them. Every condition in your life is there, because at some level, you have assumed it to be true. This might be uncomfortable to accept, but it's also incredibly empowering, because it means you have the power to change everything simply by changing your assumptions. But here's where most people struggle. They want to change their assumptions while still holding on to their old identity. They want to assume they're wealthy while still thinking of themselves as poor. They want to assume they're loved while still believing they're unworthy. True transformation requires a complete shift of identity. You must be willing to let go of who you think you are to become who you desire to be. You must be willing to abandon familiar limitations to embrace unlimited possibility. I once worked with a man who had failed in business 3 times. He came to me convinced that he was just not cut out for success. His assumption was so strong that he unconsciously sabotaged every opportunity that came his way. The problem isn't your circumstances, I told him. The problem is your assumption about yourself. You've assumed you're a failure, and the law is faithfully giving you more failure. But what if you assumed something different? What if you assumed you were naturally successful, that everything you touched turned to gold? It took time to break down his old assumption and build a new one. But when he finally embodied the assumption of success, when he felt it in his bones rather than just thinking it in his head, everything changed. His 4th business venture exceeded his wildest dreams. And here's something that will shatter your understanding of what's possible. Scientists are now discovering what mystics have known for millennia. Reality is far more fluid than you've been taught. And you, my friend, are the one holding the paintbrush. What if I told you that modern quantum physics is proving everything I've been teaching you? Scientists have discovered that at the quantum level, particles exist in what they call superposition, meaning all possibilities exist simultaneously until an observer collapses them into a single reality. You are that observer. Every moment, you are collapsing infinite possibilities into your singular experience through the power of your focused attention and assumption. But here's what the scientists won't tell you, because they're still catching up to what we've always known. You don't need a laboratory to be a quantum physicist. You are already conducting the most important experiment in the universe, the experiment of your own life. Every assumption you make is like choosing which reality to collapse from the field of infinite possibilities. When you assume you are wealthy, you are selecting that reality from all the potential timelines available to you. When you assume you are loved, you are tuning into the frequency where that love already exists. This is why your imagination is so powerful. It's not just fantasy, it's your interface with the quantum field of pure potential. When you imagine something vividly, when you feel it as real, You are literally reaching into the field of possibilities and drawing that reality toward you. I once had a student who was a physicist. He came to me struggling with this concept intellectually. "Neville," he said, "I understand the quantum mechanics, but how can my personal assumptions affect reality on a macro scale?" I smiled and said, "My friend, you're thinking too small. You are not separate from the quantum field. You are a localized expression of it. Every assumption you make sends ripples through the entire fabric of reality. The question isn't whether you can affect reality. The question is, which reality are you choosing to experience?" Within months of embracing this understanding, his career transformed. He went from struggling researcher to leading breakthrough discoveries that revolutionized his field, not through harder work, but through aligning with the reality where he was already successful. There's an ancient practice, almost lost to time, that makes everything I've taught you 10 times more powerful. The ancients knew something about the human mind that we've completely forgotten. And when you rediscover it, manifestation becomes as natural as breathing. Throughout history, the greatest minds understood something profound. The future is not fixed, it's scripted, and you are the scriptwriter. Ancient civilizations practiced what they called sacred theater, the art of living out their desired reality in detailed, sensory-rich inner experiences. They didn't just hope for better times, they lived them first in consciousness, then watched as external reality caught up to their inner script. But modern society has taught you the opposite. You've been conditioned to script your future based on your past. You look at what happened yesterday and project it forward, assuming tomorrow will be more of the same. You script failure because you've experienced failure. You script struggle because struggle is what you know. But what if you could rewrite the script? This is not visualization or positive thinking. This is conscious reality creation. When you script your ideal day, your perfect relationship, your dream life with the same vivid detail that you remember your past, you are literally programming your future experience. Here's the secret the ancients knew. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you script a scene with enough sensory detail and emotional intensity, your subconscious accepts it as fact and begins reorganizing your reality to match that script. I remember working with a woman who had been single for years. She had convinced herself that all the good men are taken and had scripted a future of loneliness. When I taught her to script a different reality, to spend time each night living out conversations with her ideal partner, feeling loved and cherished, experiencing the joy of deep connection, something remarkable happened. She began attracting different people into her life. Her energy changed, her conversations changed, even her appearance seemed to transform. Within 6 months, she met a man who matched every detail of her scripted ideal. Not because she manifested him from thin air, but because she had aligned herself with the reality where such love was natural and available. Your life is a movie, and you are the director, producer, and star. The question is, are you creating a masterpiece or a tragedy? The power is always in your hands. Every morning, you wake up with a blank script for the day. You can fill it with worry, doubt, and repetition of past patterns, or you can write a story worthy of your highest dreams. Now I'm going to tell you something that might disturb you deeply. There are forces in this world that benefit from you not knowing your true power. And once you understand why, you'll never look at your limitations the same way again. My friends, we must speak of something uncomfortable but necessary. You have been hypnotized, not by some mysterious force, but by the collective agreement of a sleeping humanity. From the moment you were born, you were programmed with limitations. You were told what was possible and what wasn't, what was realistic and what was fantasy, what you could achieve and what was beyond your reach. This wasn't done maliciously. It was done by people who were themselves programmed by their predecessors. But here's what's truly disturbing. This collective hypnosis serves those who benefit from your limitations. When you believe you are powerless, you give your power away. When you believe you must struggle, you accept systems that profit from your struggle. When you believe scarcity is natural, You don't question why abundance is hoarded by so few. The greatest conspiracy is not hidden in secret meetings. It's hidden in plain sight as your own limiting beliefs. Think about it. What would happen if everyone suddenly realized they were creators of their own reality? What would happen if everyone understood that struggle is optional, that abundance is our birthright, that we don't need permission from any external authority to live our dreams? The entire structure of control would crumble overnight. This is why your awakening to your true power is not just personal. It's revolutionary. Every time you break free from a limiting belief, every time you prove that the impossible is possible in your own life, you weaken the collective hypnosis for everyone. I've seen this happen countless times. One person in a family awakens to their creative power and transforms their life. Soon, others in the family begin questioning their own limitations. One person in a community breaks free from the consensus reality of struggle and lack, and their success becomes a beacon that awakens others. You are not just changing your life, you are helping to change the world. But with this power comes responsibility. You cannot unsee what you now see. You cannot unknow what you now know. You are being called to step out of the collective dream of limitation and into the individual reality of infinite possibility. Some will try to pull you back. They will call you unrealistic, naive, or delusional. They will point to evidence of why your dreams are impossible. But you must remember, they are speaking from within the hypnosis. They are defending limitations they believe are real. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to live so authentically from your awakened state that your very existence becomes an invitation for others to wake up too. I once had a student who came from a family that had been poor for generations. When he began applying these principles and his financial situation transformed, his family couldn't understand it. They accused him of getting lucky or changing. They were right about one thing: he had changed. He had awakened from the family hypnosis of poverty and stepped into a reality where abundance was natural. At first, this created tension. But as the years passed and his prosperity remained stable and joyful, something beautiful happened. One by one, family members began asking him questions. They began questioning their own assumptions about money and success. Today, that entire family line has been transformed, and they speak of him as the one who broke the generational curse of poverty. You have the power to be that person for your lineage, your community, your world. Before I leave you with the most important truth of all, I want you to understand something that will change everything. You are not trying to get something from the universe. The truth is far more beautiful and far more powerful than that. I want you to understand this. You are not separate from the creative power of the universe. You are that power expressing itself as you. Every desire that stirs within your heart is the universe seeking to experience itself through you. Every dream that captures your imagination is life calling you to become more than you currently believe yourself to be. You are not begging the universe for favors. You are the universe awakening to its own infinite possibilities. When you truly grasp this, everything changes. You stop trying to manipulate external conditions and start aligning with the creative flow. You stop asking, "How can I get what I want?" and start knowing, "I am what I seek." The universe is not something outside of you that you must convince or impress. The universe is you, expressing as you, through you. This is why your assumptions are so powerful. They are not separate from the creative force. They are the very mechanism through which it operates. This is why your feelings matter so much. They are not just emotions, they are the language of creation itself. When you align your assumptions with your desires, when you feel yourself already living the life you dream of, when you trust that everything is unfolding perfectly, even when you cannot see how, in that alignment, you become a clear channel for miracles. But trust is not something you do, it's something you are. You don't have to learn to trust the universe. You only have to remember that you are the universe trusting itself to create through you. Stop trying to figure everything out. Stop struggling against the natural flow of life. Stop believing that you must earn your good through suffering and effort. Instead, Assume the best about yourself and your future. Feel the joy of your fulfilled desires. Live in the end of your greatest dreams. The same intelligence that spins galaxies into existence, that orchestrates the perfect timing of seasons, that beats your heart without your conscious effort. That intelligence is your intelligence. That power is your power. That love is your love. You are not learning to create. You are remembering that you never stop creating. So go now with this understanding burning in your heart. Every moment is a new opportunity to assume the best. Every breath is a chance to align with your highest vision. Every choice is an invitation to embody the truth of who you really are. The universe is not working against you. It is working as you. Trust it, because in trusting it, you are trusting yourself. And in that trust, all things become possible. Remember, you are the operant power. You are the creative force. You are the dreamer and the dream. Now go forth and create consciously. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If these words have touched something deep within you, if they have awakened a remembrance of your true power, then share this truth with others. The world needs more conscious creators, more individuals who understand their divine nature, more people living from the end of their highest vision. The universe is dreaming through you. Make it a beautiful dream.